Hello, welcome back to the Wildly Rooted Spirit channel and the Feed Your Wild podcast. I am so happy you are here. Today we are tuning into this Scorpio New Moon. And if you haven't felt it already, you're probably going to feel it now as we enter the depths, this underbelly of this scorpionic intensity that we have been feeling for all of October and this part of November. If reality has felt fluid, dreamlike, or charged with emotional electricity, it's probably because we're in one of the most transformational Scorpio seasons in years. The new moon is at 28 degrees of Scorpio. That's the new moon that we are talking about today. So stay tuned for an overview of the skies, some medical astrology and herbal allies that are coming through today, as well as a specific Oracle Akashic channeling for each sign. So this, you would look for your rising and or sun sign. I recommend checking in on both, and you can find all of those time-stamped below if you want to skip to those. Now, with this new moon at 28 degrees of Scorpio, this is part of this overall story as we're rounding the corner of 2025, this turning point where deep emotional truths are rising and have been. Old identity structures are shedding, and there is something within you that is being reborn, that is there ready to rise like the phoenix. Now, if you're interested in a deeper Akashic channeling on this new moon, I record those and drop those monthly inside of my community called Bloom. This is a sanctuary for intuitive healers, practitioners, lightworkers, and mystics, where you get access to esoteric teachings that support your intuitive path, as well as Akashic meditations, channelings, and live Q&A, as well as connection calls. So if you want to journey deeper in with other lightworkers, mystics, and intuitive healers, then come join us. You can find the link in the show notes. Now let's start off with the context, the environment, if you will, of this lunation. We have currently 6 planets in water signs. So there is major water energy here, massive emotional field. We have the sun and moon and Mercury in the sign of Scorpio. We have Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, and we have Jupiter in Cancer. So this brings us into this sort of spiritual basin, right? A place where feelings are intensified. Psychic channels are open. Dreams are delivering messages. And these emotional truths that I've been talking about are rising to the surface from the depths of the waters. So for some, it can feel like overwhelm. But there is also this distinction. You can cultivate the way to ride these waves, or to be in this basin, so to speak, where you're experiencing it more as depth, a depth of wisdom and emotional knowledge and intelligence rather than overwhelm. And this can feel like a cleansing wave because we are dissolving emotional structures that are no longer serving us. That's the gift of water here. So if you've been crying randomly, a lot, in the car, in the shower, sensing other people's emotions, having visions, feeling extra sensitive in this time, this is this water trine playing out for you. Of course, we want to take a look at where this is happening in your chart. So you can take a look at 28 degrees of Scorpio in your chart. What house is this hitting? And again, I'm going to channel in some insights and messages for your unique sign, rising, and or sun for this lunation. So stay tuned for that. Now, this new moon is conjunct Mercury. Mercury is retrograde, and they are coming together at the same degree. So this is called a Cazimi when Mercury is in the heart of the sun. This is a moment of receiving, of stillness, of revelation, because literally things come to light. You receive the download, you receive the awareness, the channeling. You are meant to go inward. This is not a time of doing, right? Or going for and seeking, although you may have a sense to do that in some way. This is more a time for listening, to be quiet enough to hear what is rising from your own depths. So this new moon is sitting in Scorpio's final degrees in the last decan 3 of Scorpio. This decan is signified by the Seven of Cups. This is a decan of choices, of looking at one's desires, of vision and pathways, and dissolving illusions. This is bringing clarity through a process of communion with yourself, your inner being, through silence, through symbols, through instinctual knowing, which is very Scorpionic, and also flashes of insight or remembrance that might come through. So a lot of this can feel like a rebirthing because it feels familiar. It was already within you. And that kind of shedding that is very Scorpionic with the snake and even dissolving and rising like the phoenix. This is reconnecting with those aspects within. Now, being in this final decan of Scorpio, which in the ancient texts is really depicted as there can be this sense of overwhelm by tuning into all these various choices and desires that we have. Which is the right one? Which is the one that's going to lead to what it is that I ultimately desire, or that is ultimately aligned for me? So there can be this sense of overwhelm and not knowing which path to take. This overwhelming desire of receiving clarity if there are too many choices or it's not visible for you. And if that is you, I highly recommend you check out my last episode on this concept of lack of clarity and what that's really about. So go check that out. And also know that with this lunation, it's not about seeking clarity. Again, it's about communing with that inner essence, your spirit self, and allowing it to emerge. This is also happening opposite Uranus. Uranus, the planet of shock and awakening and change, illumination, is at 29 degrees of Taurus. So it's opposing this sun, moon, and Mercury. This is this electric shock and jolt in the dark. Have you ever been in a situation where it's at night and it's completely dark, and because of friction or whatever, all of a sudden you see these sparks happening because of the static electricity from your blanket or your pajamas? And so imagine like actually getting that jolt. And rather than a jolt of electricity in that sense, although it can be, this is a sudden realization in your psyche. This is a truth that is revealed that you can't unsee. This is about the breaking of old patterns because of a sudden awareness. And ultimately, it's leading to liberation because Uranus wants liberation from what you have been looping in, right? These patterns that we find ourselves in within our life experience. So this is a shakeup. And in the sign of Taurus, this is a shakeup in terms of, well, money. If we're looking at the Scorpio-Taurus axis, that is a financial axis. So it can be in money, but also in terms of what we value. And also the body. Taurus rules the body. And stability, agriculture, food, these things that are mundane, meaning of this material world, and shaking our sense of stability in that way, which can be scary. But this doesn't necessarily feel chaotic. It feels more like an awakening, like we're waking up from some sort of dream that perhaps held us captive. Uranus is this point of the kite that is formed by a water trine, this water trine that is happening. And so the energy is flowing toward Uranus. The energy is flowing toward change. You're not meant to stay the same. I mean, you couldn't even if you tried. That's what this year, 2025, has been about. There have been so many instances of this exact kind of feeling and portal, if you will, of going in one way and coming out completely changed. So let's talk about this kite formation. There's this grand trine happening with Jupiter, Neptune, and the Scorpio planets. And it's pouring that energy, as I'd mentioned, toward Uranus. This is creating emotional flow. There is spiritual insight. Again, there's that psychic deepening with Scorpio and all of the water signs playing out here. This is also breakthrough energy. Uranus is very much like breakthrough energy, awakening, and also action. Like this new moon and the seeds that are being planted, maybe not even of your own doing, right? Because this is not necessarily about doing anything, but that will eventually lead to action, probably when Mercury goes direct. So with this, it's about being in that chrysalis process, right? Where you're shedding the old skin and you're starting to rebrand, so to speak, right? Like Mercury retrograde vibes, especially if you have Gemini, Virgo, like ruled by Mercury, or you're in a Mercury ruled perfection year like I am. This can feel like there is a shift in identity, a shift in how you communicate, a shift in trajectory in general. So this new moon may feel like something that hits you in the middle of the night, right? Like that someone breaks some news to you that you were completely not expecting. Perhaps a fear dissolves, like in a totally unexpected way. You can find that past pattern releases for whatever reason. And a lot of this, it feels like your soul may have intended this, but it's not like you were seeking it out. A direction may also become clear. However, I feel like because of this last decan of Scorpio, where there is this sense of kind of like juggling that 7 of Cups, where it's like, what do I choose? I'm kind of in the dark about it, that you may not have that revelatory moment until after this new moon, because new moons are really ultimately about planting the seeds, right? So this might be the initial spark of a revelation that then becomes clearer and clearer over time. So again, Mercury being retrograde, there's a revisiting of something, a return. And I have been seeing this in my own life and inside of our community over at Bloom. There have been others who've also shared like things that are happening and rehappening and revisiting, returning, conversations, situations, people with this Mercury retrograde this time around. But with Mercury Cazimi, it really does feel like it's aligning this revisiting, reassessing energy with a message that you're finally ready to hear. Perhaps a deeper truth that started to unravel, like you were pulling at the thread, right? And now it's literally like pulling it and unraveling this deeper truth from earlier this year. And you may have some clarity about something that you were emotionally avoiding. And also insights maybe from previous cycles. So everything is cyclic. If we were to tune into this energy and astrological configuration, some years that you may want to take a peek at and revisit are 2006, 2015, and 2017. What was happening in those years, in those times? Now, with Mercury retrograde, that means that at some point, Mercury is going to station direct and travel back. So Mercury will trine Neptune and Jupiter again after this new moon. So like I mentioned before, it feels like the clarity, while you might have this like sudden awareness or, like this awakening process, that clarity continues to build into December. So it's a peeling process and a revealing process where you get clear and clear on what that is. It depends on, what is being highlighted in your particular chart. Now let's take a look at Venus. Venus is in Scorpio, and Venus in Scorpio is, like goth Venus. Can't really be the way that she was ultimately designed. So she has to find new ways of accessing that harmony that she's so much desires and desires to manifest. This can also touch on themes around sense of self-worth and intimacy, and maybe fears around that, or scarcity or vulnerability. This is also like having you take a look with a magnifying glass, because Scorpio likes to really go deep, dig deep like that journalist, reconnecting with your mojo, right? With your magnetism. And ultimately connecting, I feel, to a lot of what maybe has been tabled or set aside due to either current life circumstances, maybe you putting others before you, or even past life residue. So this could also activate past life and Akashic memories coming through and helping you to move through that. Venus is trining the North Node in Pisces, so this definitely is having to do with spiritual and soul evolution work. And Venus is asking, like, what are you finally willing to receive here? And I'm going to dig deep to find out, right? Like, this is a very deep Venus. Now, as we have been seeing, there are so many planets that are at the final degrees of particular signs, and we have so many planets that are also retrograde. So this whole end of 2025 feels like it's revisiting old stories, taking a look at, and again, depending on the house placements, these particular areas of our life that we are meant to revisit and reassess and shift, reorganize. I mean, I even find myself, part of this for me is happening in my fourth house, which is having to do with home, roots, foundations, literally where you live, private life. So there's quite a bit going on there for me. And I found myself, as soon as Mercury went retrograde, I mean, at a subconscious level, I'm aware of the moments when that's happening clearly, and because I'm also tracking this, but it's not top of mind for me. And I find myself insatiably reorganizing. I'm just looking around of like what I'm purging, what I'm reassessing in terms of what I want to keep, what I want to give away, donate, what is even me anymore, like what fits, what doesn't in terms of how it makes me feel. It feels like shedding things in order to make room and space for more alignment, more aligned pieces, whether it's furniture or clothes or people, to step into my reality. We have Saturn at 25 degrees of Pisces. So this is holding the steadiness in the spiritual realm, right, with Pisces, and really anchoring your intuition in terms of structure and perhaps a devotion, like spiritual devotion practices, making it very structured, which can actually be incredibly supportive for that watery Pisces energy. And clarifying your boundaries. when it comes to the unseen realms in particular with Pisces, but also Pisces being very much connected to like unity consciousness and merging with the other, that we want to make sure we're holding some pretty healthy boundaries between the seen as well. And Neptune, right there next to Saturn at 29 degrees of Pisces, this is the final review of the spiritual tide. This feels like the final review because Neptune has been journeying through Pisces for quite some time and retrograded back into Pisces recently. So this is returning and taking a look back at that Piscean area of your chart in your life, but also that Piscean energy. Forgiveness, surrender, compassion, reconnecting with your spiritual self and the unseen. And it feels like with these two at play, it's sort of softening a little bit this potential shock of Uranus at that height of the kite. And then we have Jupiter, who's also retrograde in Cancer. Now, Jupiter's exalted in Cancer, and that can be a really beautiful energy for many people. Now, if Jupiter isn't a powerhouse in your planet, in your particular chart, and there's many different reasons why that would be, then you may not feel the potential fullness of the boons and blessings that Jupiter can bring in Cancer. Having said that, it's not going to necessarily hurt. Now, Jupiter retrograde in Cancer is helping us to come back because Jupiter was flying in Cancer, like went through all of Cancer super quickly, but now has stationed retrograde. So there's I got to go back and check in on some stuff that I maybe left behind or that I set into place, and now I had the intention of coming back to go over it again. So reviewing that, relearning what it means to nourish the self and others, reviewing those emotional needs. So all of these themes that are connected in with Cancer, reclaiming the blessings that maybe you have overlooked. If you received something, if even just looking at the blessings that are available to you in your life, so often we don't pause to just really look at how beautiful it is that we have that in our lives. To be in gratitude and in appreciation. And, of course, having a gratitude practice is like one of the best things we can do because it really does bring our mind, our subconscious, it programs our subconscious to focus on the blessings, what we are receiving versus the lack. Now, I talk about the reticular activating system, the RAS, in the lack of clarity, searching for clarity episode that I mentioned before. So again, if you're feeling that is you, highly recommend you tune into that episode. But it's important to program ourselves through gratitude practice because you're literally programming your subconscious and your nervous system by doing so. So Jupiter retrograding Cancer, I feel, is extra love and support in having us do so. Together, all of these planets together, it feels like they keep the emotional surge flowing, but in a purposeful direction. It feels purposeful. We're going somewhere with it. We're not just drowning in emotions. We are moving with the tides. Now, I mentioned how 2025 and moving into 2026, like there's going to be a vibe change for sure, especially in the early spring months of 2026. So this period now, November through January, feels like that chrysalis that I was talking about before, where you are dissolving, or there's aspects of yourself and your reality that are dissolving, liquefying, shedding, reordering, restructuring, recalibrating. And that's not necessarily a cute process, right? Like you might feel tired. You might feel those moments of overwhelm. You're probably going to feel tender, spiritually sensitive for sure, psychic enhancement for sure. I mean, I work with healers who are intuitive. So I'm seeing this on another level for people, but everybody. And so this is not a regression. I think about with little kids, and there's this concept of, I don't even know the months, but like 8-month regression, or like, year or 2-year-old regression, where the concept is that the child, the baby, the toddler regresses due to whatever circumstances, or maybe because that's a thing, which I actually don't believe in. But what I do believe in is that what can present as a regression is actually a demonstration, behavioral demonstration, like in the case of the little ones, of something deeper that is at play, a recalibration process that's happening. So if you feel like you're finding and you're like, shit, well, I feel like I'm regressing in my life, right? Like, kind of like when the tide pulls back. We can kind of feel like, am I going backward? And then ultimately the tide comes back and in full force. So trust where you are. Trust where you're at. Trust that there's this recalibration process happening, and that there's a review that may feel or look like regression. So the version of you that is entering 2026 is not the one leaving 2025. You literally cannot be the same person in 2026 that you were in 2025. Nobody. And so that process of becoming is going to look different for everybody and may not be comfortable for the majority of people, right? Because nobody likes change. Nobody likes change. And I'm talking our subconscious. We can consciously desire change. Oh, I want to change. I want to make all of these changes. I want my life to look different. But at a subconscious level, change is dangerous. So we can be Jupiter Cancer retrograde, like tend to that parts of ourselves that are unseen and that are hidden, that are afraid, that don't want to let go. And how can we hold them with so much love? Hold ourselves, whether that's any aspect of yourself, any identity that is holding on to what you really do need to let go of in order to move forward into 2026 in full alignment. Have so much compassion and allow yourself to be with those aspects of yourself. Okay, so for my healers, what is this season asking you in like this new moon? You may find yourselves, if you're a space holder, helping others move through their shedding, right? And their intensity, their emotional intensity. So normalizing the emotional intensity of this time, the sensitivity that people are maybe not as familiar with or used to. So that means staying grounded in your own heart, in your own self, having your tools on hand so that you can support others. I mean, in no matter role you play, whether it is healer practitioner in your work and your vocation, or in your community, in your family system, your role as a mother, daughter, sister, friend. So anchoring in coherence for yourself is priority, because you're not meant to fix anything, or let alone fix things for others. You're meant to stand steady and standing tall in yourself. So for many, 2025 is like this rite of passage, individually and collectively. So I know that I myself have been holding space for some very, very heavy stuff that's coming up for a lot of healers. And I'm not surprised, because there are these deeper layers that are showing up. And we're not meant to take a lot of what we have been carrying and holding on to with us into our future. Okay, let's get into the medical astrology component and some herbal allies here. When we're looking at Scorpio is a water sign and a fixed water sign, whereas Cancer is cardinal water. We have Pisces, which is mutable water. Fixed water can tend more toward stagnancy, and that's what we see with an imbalanced Scorpio. What we want to tend to in terms of the tissue states is that stagnation and dampness. So when we look at tissue states as it relates to the energetic system of traditional Western herbalism, damp stagnation is the primary imbalance we see with Scorpio. And the body systems in connection with Scorpio include the lower chakra systems, so the root and the sacral, the groin area, the sex organs, the colon, the lower digestive system, so the colon, also the sex organs and genitals, groin area, prostate. We can also see uterus, the cervix here, the pelvis in general, urogenital system, the reproductive system, gallbladder also here in terms of the digestive system, and the systems of excretion, the excretory system. So the areas of elimination, right? And those orifices. When we see imbalances or diseases in these areas, we could see disorders of the womb, of reproductive issues, organ imbalances, also issues with sexually transmitted diseases, infertility, irregular menses or painful menses, infections and like UTIs or bladder infections. Hemorrhoids is also a thing. We can also see parasites, parasitic infections when it comes to Scorpio as well. Now, health-wise, Scorpio folk, so if you have scorpionic energy in your chart, there can be a tendency toward accumulation of toxins as that fixed water sign that I was talking about, that stagnancy. And the still waters, the stagnant waters, just like a swamp or a puddle, can build up toxicity and growth. So this can absolutely be an environmental and physical level, like with poisoning or and toxins. But with Scorpios, I tend to see that the primary form of toxicity is emotional and psychic in nature. So letting things simmer and brew and like fixating on something that ultimately is supposed to be released, but you're not letting it go. And then that leading to physical symptoms and ailments that eventually manifest. Because Scorpio inherently has a detoxifying strength. Like there is a detoxifying quality to Scorpio people that is very strong, because that's part of what you're here to do, right? Like it's going deep into that dirt, into the darkness, and to compost and to rise back up. But what can happen is that fixity, you can hold on to things and ruminate and go deep with that and not fully let go. And so sometimes it could even be like forcing things, so like even pushing out the toxins that can hurt, and can manifest as symptoms. So this could be, excretions or rashes or acne or body odor, excess sweat, like diarrhea, so depending on like irritability, lashing out on somebody. Scorpio is ruled by Mars after all. So it's really important for Scorpio folk to really connect in with that natural detoxification system and orientation that you have, and to really allow yourself to gently detoxify by letting go of what you don't need to hold on to anymore, but don't force it or push it. Building in gentle detoxification practices in your day-to-day life. So, there's many different practices that can be helpful that promote gentle detoxification. one of which is supporting your digestive system and drinking a lot of water, right? Like, how can you get the system moving? For imbalanced or weakened Scorpios, that's why herbs that are detoxifying or that are warming in nature and like have a quickening quality that promote movement, that promote elimination are really helpful. And scheduling in activities that like working out, moving your body, jumping on the rebounder, lymphatic massage, even self-lymphatic massage, emotional detoxification through therapy, through, like raging out on a pillow, through journaling, through speaking your truth out loud, maybe recording it. Like these are really, any cathartic experience is highly healing for my Scorpios. And so really incorporating that into your life as like daily practice, like brushing your teeth. In light of the supportive, detoxifying, moving, warming herbs, there's many out there that could be really helpful. Some that are more oriented to supporting Scorpio as remedy herbs are highly antiparasitic, like wormwood, artemisia. Also aloe and rosemary is really beautiful for that warmth and movement, even just smelling rosemary. It's also highly protective. A lot of these highly anti-parasitic types of plants, they also have spiritual properties of protection and warding off evil spirits, which of course, is very connected here. Of course, and with Scorpio being highly sensitive and intuitive, this is also important work too, because we cannot forget about the unseen realms. So I mentioned in other episodes some other herbs that are supportive and have gone deep on those, like black cohosh is another one, or blessed thistle. Oregon grapefruit is a really beautiful one for digestive movement and gentle detoxification. But when I opened up the records to tune into the plant ally that wanted to come in, immediately Datura came in. Now, Datura is a beautiful night blooming flower. You may recognize her as this white flower that is trumpet-like. And she blooms at night and then withers the next day. So these flowers evoke this feeling of that mystery, right, in the portal to the spirit realm, especially in the dark. And Datura has been used by Native Americans in sacred ceremonies and has been important in part of their culture. But I have to be very clear that this plant is extremely toxic, highly toxic, poisonous. So the folks that have worked with Datura in terms of consumption know what they're doing. And I do not recommend that you take in Datura unless you want to work with the flower essence of Datura, because with flower essences, there is no constituent of the flower that is still left, whether it's a flower essence or an essence of some other part of the plant. There isn't a physical compound or component of that plant in a flower essence. It's literally the energetics of it. So it works on the subtle body and can be very powerful. And this is my favorite way of working with Datura. Datura, as you can imagine, opens up these doors of perception and tuning into the unseen and also the dream realm, and allows us to go deeper into the mystery. So she has this shamanic quality that makes sense why Datura is coming in for Scorpio. And the work that I feel we're being invited to do with this cycle, with this lunar cycle. And she's a perfect ally for those dark nights of the soul that I'm telling you, I'm just getting connected with so many people that are in the depths of their dark nights right now. And Datura can help to really move through what feels sticky and stagnant. Speaking of Scorpio, right? The stagnant tissue state, in order to clear and detoxify the psyche. And when appropriate, Datura helps us in letting go of the known and our familiar reality, and allows us to open up, dissolving the illusions that might have been connected with those, or like our perceived our beliefs that really shape what we see and what we experience in our reality. Datura allows us to let go of that. And that can be a person, a job, relationship, whatever it is, in a way that is non-threatening, because you have this access to this visionary state with Datura. And she also helps to cultivate the sense of courage to let go of that familiar and that perceived security. Because oftentimes our mind is going to play out a story that tells us that something is safe or secure when that's not actually true. So Datura can help us see in the dark what is happening, and can ease some of that confusion and the paradox that we often experience during these periods of shedding, of transformation, and perceptual shifts that I've been talking about. So makes a lot of sense why Datura is showing up today. She was very loud and clear. And I encourage you to connect with her essence, and even just connect with the spirit of Datura and see what unfolds for you. Okay, so now let's get into the oracle readings for each sign. For these, I'm going to be pulling them on the fly. And I want you to tune in to both your rising sign as well as your sun sign. For distinction on the two, your sun sign has more to do with like your soul's truth and direction and purpose in this life. Very often it can be connected with your work and career, because it's kind of how you show up, as opposed to the rising sign, your ascendant, which is very connected with the player, the game player that you present as. All right, so the character, your role on this stage of life on Earth. This is also how people perceive you. So the rising sign is very connected with the events in your life, because this is how we are experiencing realities through sort of like that avatar. Whereas the sun is more connected with our soul essence and can be more related to your work in this world. So we're going to go sign by sign. And also, just as a reminder, if you're interested in a full-on Akashic channeling for this lunation for the Scorpio New Moon and this cycle, then come over and join us inside of Bloom. And I have a special one that I'm releasing over there. Okay, so Aries, you are up. I have already opened up the records for the collective. Before I move forward, I want to share the oracle deck that I am pulling from. And I was drawn to this one because of this scorpionic energy that we have been moving through, and this Scorpio New Moon and Mercury right there, which really gives me shamanic vibes. So here we are using the Mystical Shaman Oracle Guidebook and Oracle deck. Okay. Fire. Speaking of which, right here. No surprise here, Aries, you are also ruled by Mars, as is Scorpio, but you are really embodying that fire, that elemental fire energy that Mars has, whereas Scorpio is the water aspect of it and how that can be formed through water. But let me tune in to what this fire card is really speaking to you. You are here to forge through, to create new pathways, not just for yourself, but for others and the collective. I'm seeing this as like you are literally lit up, but the only way that you can fully light up is by being 100% yourself. That means letting go of false identities, of anything that is not you, the voices that are not you, the judgments and perceptions of others that have potentially shaped your formation or your sense of self. Now is the time to release all of that and shed it, because literally that fire within you is meant to be that torch that leads us, that leads the rest of us, that require that light. For example, the torch that is being passed in the Olympics, right? Like lighting up the torch and then leading the pathway. Forging. It's like I even see forest, and then you are making the pathway for us. So even if we don't see the path ahead, you are literally able to forge it with your fire energy. Others are also, they may have already and they will continue to seek you out for advice, for that visionary capacity that you have, for the words that you are willing to say, but nobody else is willing to say. And I'm also receiving that the world is so ready for an embodiment of sacred fire that is wielded and worked with and utilized in a generative way. It makes me think about how, so many of the untamable wildfires that happen are really rooted in a forgetting of our relationship with Mother Earth and how to tend to the fires or work with and use that fire element in a way that is from this place of stewardship and love and commitment and reciprocity. So it's almost like being the embodiment of that for people so that you can lead us, because you have this leadership energy. So that is for you. Next, we have Taurus. The lower world. The lower world. I don't think that it is an accident that you are getting the lower world when we are tuning into this Scorpio New Moon energy and Uranus going back into your sign for one last round, for the final leg of the trip. There is that Scorpio Taurus axis here. The lower world is what we journey to. Right? That shamanic quality of journeying into the dark, journeying into that lower world to heal these shadow aspects, to alchemize what is hidden in these realms. And the world, the physical world and the physical body being very much connected with Taurus, with Uranus coming in and like the whole permutation, if you listen to the rest of the lunation here in terms of that kite formation and the opposition with this new moon, it feels like there is some major digging happening here within your life. Physically, I'm getting for you, like with the body. Like old stuff is coming up. Maybe symptoms that, speaking of regression, I spoke of like this concept of regression, and that's not actually what we're experiencing, but some of you may be feeling like you have regressions with your health. Like maybe some old symptoms have come through for you that you're journeying with, or that you like have insights around, but here you're getting to the deeper roots of what those are about. This is like next level for you. I'm also getting in terms of your money, in terms of finances, stability within your, like the material reality of your life experience. So digging deeper in there, I'm getting for some of you, like, even just in terms super mundane stuff, like taxes, accounting, like getting really granular, revisiting. I see spreadsheets. So like, it's like looking at expenses. So I don't know if this, having to do with if you have a business or even just like your life, your budget, there's something here around like you're piecing together and finally getting to the roots of maybe even having to do with some beliefs or identities that have been running the show as it relates to your finances. There's a digging here, and that this Scorpio new moon and this lunation cycle is going to help illuminate. And that makes sense. Like you'll probably get more clarity with that once Mercury goes direct, but that's what's coming up for you. Next, we have Gemini. And Gemini, you are also being very activated here because of this Mercury retrograde Cazimi. So let's see what wants to come through for you. Eagle. Okay, so let me tune in. These are beautiful cards, by the way. If you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, highly recommend you tune into the YouTube to check out these cards. So I just felt that Mercury Cazimi moment is like that still point where it feels so beautiful and like you are held, but it's with this higher vantage point. It's like this connection with the divine. And Mercury being the ruler of your sign, this feels like you have this divine connection that happens, especially with this Cazimi, and it's almost like planting this seed, baking in that energy in this lunation cycle as you plant those seeds of that direct connection to source, divine connection, intuitive channel, however you want to interpret that, so that you have that vantage point of the eagle, which, by the way, Scorpio and that Scorpio energy is also signified by the eagle in addition to the scorpion and snake and phoenix. But eagle is part of it. And that clarity of the eyes, they just keep showing me the eagle eyes and being able to see the whole picture, but then also have the precision and acuity with that vision, that granular vision that Mercury is so good with. And it's not, right now I feel you and see you soaring in the sky. So it's not so much about going down and catching your prey or the thing that it is that you're going for. It's more like sitting in this vantage point, taking it all in, assessing, so that you're literally building the map. I'm seeing a mental map of what is the lay of the land. And that way, once you are ready to make certain decisions and to make choices, that you can go in there with precision and acuity. And I just see it like so clean, so astute, and that there's like while it may feel slow and steady, and then boom, like you go in. So that's what I'm feeling. And again, it feels like that action part isn't what's really alive here right now. Right now, it's the soaring. All right, Cancer, you are next. Wind. And what's so fascinating is the last lunation, wind came up for Sagittarius. Now wind is coming up for you, my dear Cancer. So let me tune into what wind has to say for you. And even in just tuning in, we see like a falcon and the wind and a beautiful woman there. Okay. Right away, I'm being shown Jupiter moving through your sign retrograde. And it felt like, you know, that vacuumous phenomenon when something goes really fast and then turns or comes back around in a different way, similar to that energy of Jupiter going direct so fast and then coming back retrograde. It like creates this twist, this twister effect with that wind that feels also like a vacuum or a centrifugal force, because I'm seeing the leaves moving up, and it's this energy of and with the waters, because they're showing me that happening with the waters, and literally the waters with the wind rising up, which kind of is to me a natural phenomenon that seems kind of scary, right? Because it's like literally the waters are moving like a tornado and siphoning up. But with this, it doesn't feel scary or dangerous. It feels like there is such power here, but it is about like that centered space, that centeredness, being in the middle of that storm or that centrifuge, that tornado, the twister, whatever it is. There's a stillness in watching. It makes me feel like the Wheel of Fortune card, where it really depends on where you choose to sit on that wheel, right? Because if you are in those waves that are being slashed around, then you're going to feel it. Right? You're going to feel tossed around. But if you're in that center point, then you witness. And there's a stillness there, and you are safe. Or at least, you know, your body, your nervous system has that sense of safety and stability. And also, like, there is a lot swirling in your world that you're revisiting that may, there may be an intensity with that. And like, okay, the other thing that I'm hearing is like the wind come through and whispering things to you. And so you may have these intuitive insights or maybe even clairaudient experiences where you're hearing your own thoughts or you're hearing like spirit speak through your own voice, your guides, your ancestors, whispering things to you, planting those messages, letting you know certain things. And it's about trusting them, cultivating the trust in your own clairaudience and your own intuition, and discerning if those messages are true for you. Right? So cultivating discernment with that. And the last piece that I'm getting here is moving quickly. I feel like things are and have been moving quickly, or that they will move quickly with this. This is like a quickening kind of energy, and like things shifting at a moment's notice. So there could be that at play as well. This is not the energy to like plant roots into something, you know, because it feels like there's a lot of moving pieces, or there's a lot of movement, like things aren't fully settled yet. So patience, patience with that. You know, if you're wanting to like, oh, I'm just done already, I want to like land somewhere, whatever that means for you in your life, I'm getting, just hold on a little bit longer. All right, Leo, we are pulling for you. Water. I love these. If you haven't listened to the other signs, except for Aries, which got fire, there's like a cross. There's a crossing of elements. It feels very interesting here. But you're getting water. So let me tune into that for you. Okay, immediately they're showing me the sun in Scorpio in this water trine configuration. So the sun being the ruler of your sign, it's really important to look at where is the sun at all times, right? Because that's going to influence your experience here as a solar ruled being. Now, it is in this, not only a water sign, Scorpio currently, and it has been, but there's also this big water trine energy that's happening right now. So again, like I'm getting the bigness of emotions. Like right now, the work is emotion work. It's being in the depths of that, the emotional tides, potentially the intensity, the overwhelm. What are ways that you can support your fiery essence in being in this watery space? What are the ways that you can channel what is coming up through your emotional experiences, but like channel that in a heart-centered way? They're showing me your heart. And so that's one way that you can also meet these emotional aspects, these moments that can feel very intense emotionally. Drop into your heart space, which like you are ruled by the heart. So dropping into that space and hear what your heart has to tell you, because I feel like there's a lot going on out here and also in the mental realm. And I'm just getting like you centering and dropping into the heart space so that you can really attune to what am I really being guided to understand, to experience, to know through all of this water energy, through all of the emotional tides that I have been riding. I'm also sensing some grief here. Maybe grief that wants to be tended to, that needs to be addressed and no longer resisted. Perhaps you've been journeying with grief or suppressing the grief, but there's something here around allowing yourself to feel the fullness of that in order for it to finally move in the way that it's meant to flow and to alchemize. So whatever ways that we can do some healthy grief work here for you, Leo. Okay, Virgo. Virgo, let's see what you got. Ooh, Virgo, the seer. The seer. Okay. So let me tune in for you. Similar to Gemini, which makes sense because you're both ruled by Mercury. They're both about vantage points and seeing. And so the seer here for you is like activating that priestess quality that you have, that ability to get granular and practical. The seer is the one that has the courage and audacity to see the truth and to speak the truth. So the seer is not just the one who can see things clearly, see the truth, but also to communicate, to be the translator and the channel of that. And I'm getting that for you, that, well, first and foremost for yourself. So being able to see things more clearly, and that makes sense with this Mercury Cazimi, and it might be things that you're revisiting, things from your past that have come back because of that retrograde energy. But with that Cazimi, it's like literally baked into this lunation, this clarity, and but it feels like this divine connection that I got for Gemini as well. But for you, it feels like being able to see the truth within those situations or stories or events, communication, finally being able to see the truth in them, being honest with yourself first and foremost, and then being able to be the channel and communicator of that truth for others through, I'm getting your written word, so being seen, and then I'm being shown hands writing. And that now is the time to, like, for yourself, I see you in your own room or space, like with a journal and just writing all the truths and the things that you are seeing, because you will be sharing those. With whom? I don't know, but right now it feels like doing the work of the seeing before you're activating that messenger quality. Okay. Next up, we have Libra. Libra, we have luminous warrior. Luminous warrior. Okay, let's see what we have for you. Tuning in. Okay, Libra, luminous warrior for you is embodying the fullness of the wisdom that you hold innately in your design, being ruled by Venus, the harbinger of harmony, of beauty, of love, that ultimately the luminous warrior must be rooted in love. That's what illuminates the warrior. And so there is this invitation for you to rise above those I see them as like these, you like see shadow puppets. I see like shadow puppets from these lower realms, almost like fingers trying to pull you down. And when I tune into what those are, I'm getting that these are like self-deprecation, thoughts of like lowering yourself, bringing yourself down so that others can rise. This is that people pleasing, that overgiving. This is the like shutting down your own light so that the other can be seen. And that is rooted in a false story and paradigm, because the only way that others can shine their light is if they see you shine yours. So it's almost this reframe. And it's so interesting because now, I'm being shown like through astrology, the sun is in fall in Libra, meaning because the sun is in exaltation, it loves being in Aries because Aries is like, is the pioneer, is the me, is like, I'm not afraid to shine. And so the solar energy really is exalted in that. Whereas like it's in fall in Libra because Libra considers the other. It's not all about you. And so there's something here, though, that is very medicinal in that is actually needed and required. And that's the foundational bed where, like this, I'm just being shown this tree that grows from that bed, from all of those composted false beliefs and old ways of being. And you rising up as that luminous warrior tree spirit in a way that really shows your fullness so that others can also rise and do the same. That's what this luminous warrior energy is really about. It's rooted in love. And so not being afraid to shine, not being afraid to lift yourself up while you also lift others. And by lifting yourself up, you also inherently lift up others. That's how they're able to see you. That's how they're able to calibrate to your level. So there's something here around like full acceptance of that and an embodiment of that luminosity that's within you. Beautiful card. I hope that's supportive for you. Scorpio, it's your moon, your sun, and again, tune into your rising or sun sign. But it's your season, so let's see what we got for you. Haha. I'm like, of course, soul retrieval. Soul retrieval. I mean, how scorpionic and shamanic, more shamanic can you get than soul retrieval? Okay, so let me tune in to this for you. Even this image, this entire episode I'm talking about this shedding and the chrysalis. And here we have this beautiful butterfly in the chrysalis in the light of the moon. Okay. So this is the essence. This is the essence. And in tuning into this energy, this is about releasing control. Put down the control, Scorpio. This is speaking to, like, you don't even have to try. It literally is built inside of you, your design, this ability to transform, to die and be reborn, to turn to mush like the butterfly does. And then these imaginal cells waking up and inherently knowing exactly what to do to reconstruct into that butterfly. They're not thinking, how do I do this? They're not fixating. The butterfly is not fixating. Let me read the instructions. How do I get there? I need to have pink wings. You know what I mean? Like, it's literally surrender to the process. And that's what you are being invited to not just do in your own life, but it's almost like, remember who the F you are. Soul retrieval. Soul retrieval is a remembering process. It's calling back in the parts of self that have gone hidden, that have detached, left behind. And so it's remembering all of who you are, and that it's not, you don't even have to try to do a damn thing. So I think the if there is a challenging aspect to this at all, it would be in relinquishing to what is and the process, because you might be in that space where you are ruminating, where you are fixating, where you are trying to force something to happen, because trusting that it's unfolding and that you have this capacity to regenerate in that way, it requires a level of trust that can be difficult to cultivate. So that's the challenge here for you, is work on cultivating that trust so that you can let your design do its thing rather than getting in your own way. I hope that's supportive for you. Sagittarius. Here we are, Saggies. You're my people. Okay. Taming the wind. If you tuned into the last moon musing we had, wind came up for you as well. I gave a whole thing about wind being a continuous theme. For me, I'm a Sag rising. So, and interestingly, I inside of our community Bloom, which if you're interested in checking it out, the link is in the show notes. I did an Akashic channeling for one of our lunations, and wind came through. And so it was this whole channeling on wind. But anyway, here it is again, reminding us again, which the reminders, that's Mercury retrograde vibes. It's revisiting, reminding, reassessing, being with it. So taming the wind this time. Here's this card. Okay, so, and card 55, 5-5. Let me tune in for you. Sag, this feels like it's about reconnecting with the power that you have to not only communicate with the wind, but to actually dance with the wind. And it's not about control or controlling the wind, and that's that air element energy. It's like the energy of movement, of the messages that are coming through and passing through. It's like the traveling, like spirits traveling through the wind. So there's the unseen movement and communication that is happening that we can plug directly into. And it's not this taming of the wind. Taming the wind isn't so much about control as it is about connecting with and anchoring into that energy within ourselves, which creates that resonance field and connection with the wind, the spiritual movement outside of ourselves. If that makes sense. So it's similar to, I'm being shown, I have a lot of Pisces members and clients who are great animal communicators, and makes sense for Pisces. So if that's one of you, that's a signature that I see with a lot of animal communicators, is that they got a strong Pisces somewhere in their chart. But anyway, what I'm being shown is that in order to communicate with an animal, there is a level of meeting them at connecting with them at a meeting place. So that could mean connecting to them in their field, their morphogenic field, their field of consciousness. So you meet them there. And that's what I'm getting the same with the elements and the wind, is we have to embody that. It's very much like shape-shifting. It's embodying, connecting to that element or to that being, the essence within yourself, so much so that it's all of a sudden you speak that language. without trying, because it's not about using the mind. It's about embodiment. And then through that embodiment and that connection, you calibrate the frequency, because the frequency is language, right? That everything, even language itself is the vibration. It's a frequency that like we match, we can hear, we match words, sounds, and so that we can understand through sound, through movement, through wind. So there's something here about that taming piece. It's more about, if there's anything to tame, it's that swirly whirly wind that's within ourselves. In the mental space, I'm being shown like just like a lot of activity there, a lot of movement, thoughts. I'm getting the emotional waves too, and that makes sense with Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius in Cancer. But it's almost like what the emotions are stirring up in the mental plane, and like to tame that, because then that allows you to anchor into this essence that is the wind, that is that unseen element of communication and movement, so that you can connect with that outside of yourself, right? So that's like hearing the songs and whispers of your ancestors. Like that's one piece that I'm getting through there. I'm also getting like messages about what the collective is moving through. So as a channel, as like an intuitive channel, like hearing things that are helpful to share with others, to inform our experience, and to bring a deeper sense of knowing, even in a time when it feels very tumultuous. I hope this makes sense for you and that it's supportive. Okay, Capricorn. Whoa, this one came up strong. The Crow, card number 13, the Crow. I love how all of these cards seem to have the moon. Okay, one of the first things that I'm getting for you, Capricorn, is your ability to say it like it is. I feel like Mercury is really taking the lead here on a lot of these readings, because so much is about communication, which makes sense because we have, this baked into this lunation is a Mercury retrograde Cazimi. So I'm not surprised that communication is a major theme for most of these readings. But for you, I'm getting like you have this capacity to be the pragmatic, practical communicator that tells it like it is, but in a way that people actually can receive. You know, it reminds me of my mom. She was both Capricorn, sun and moon. And she literally could say anything to people that if I were to say it, it would sound offensive. You know, people would be like, get the F out of here. But if my mom said it, they'd be like, thank you for letting me know. You know, like I remember her telling me how she told this one woman who was really going through it in her marriage, and like, you know, she was a lot of stuff. And she came to work all dressed haggard. And my mom was like, honey, like you look terrible. Let's help you out. And she, you know, helped her to like feel better about herself. But I'm like, you literally told her she looks terrible, you know, but the woman was so grateful, because it's almost like it's the truth that people know, and whether they're ready or not, the way that you were able to communicate it allows it to land. Like they know it's not coming from a place of animosity, or that, you know, there's like, I don't know, some ulterior motive with it. It's really anchored in truth and pragmatism, and is so needed, because what I'm getting is there's this reflection that is required for a lot of people who are not willing to see the truth. So they're literally blind to it. And then here you come like the crow, and you are repeating what you are tuning into that's already happening within them. There is something that is so recognizable about the cry of the crow and the ability, the willingness, and like the fearlessness of entering those darker spaces and topics that, again, I feel like Capricorn, you're not afraid to go there. You're not afraid to say the thing that others might shy away from. And so there's something here about not being afraid to activate your throat chakra, to also say the thing that nobody else is going to say, and to do it, rooted in that heart and that honesty. And maybe at first, like, somebody might be offended, but ultimately it's so rooted in truth that it's undeniable, So there's something here around really trusting that ability of yours, whether it's within your relationships, maybe it's through your writing or communication or your work. Trusting that what you say holds so much weight and is really being asked of the collective right now to be spoken. So with that, I'm excited to hear what you got to say. Aquarius, it is your turn. Let's see what comes through for you. The owl. Owl energy. Okay, so let's tune in. There's this gift of like compassionate detachment that you have. So there is this ability to see things that others can't, and to like, because I'm just seeing the owl in flight so quietly, gracefully, almost imperceptible. And that's how I feel your energy is like. You can come in and witness and really see through honest eyes what is happening, especially collectively, without putting your judgment or impressing upon it too much. It's like kind of angelic, which makes sense that the star card, for example, in tarot is connected with Aquarius. It's that angelic kind of energy that is both of this earth and not of this earth. The water bearer that carries water and yet is not touching or like a water element, like fully plugged into the water. There's this distribution of that water energy with a healthy detachment. And that's what I'm getting with the owl, is there is this ability to see through the night, to see in the dark, to be almost imperceptible, kind of like you're in observation mode and stealth, right? But it's not for trickery or anything. It literally is like, I could see this being so useful as a therapist or a mother, right? Like, you can see what's happening through lenses that are honest, like through the truth. And you can pierce through the lies and deception and distortions, especially in media. So there's something here around remembering, really anchoring into that gift that you have. And also that it's that very gift that allows you to be a kind of psychopomp for the collective, right? Like taking us into the next chapter of our collective evolutionary process, which Pluto being in Aquarius now, like, for over the next decade plus, I feel like there is that shamanic death rebirth process happening in your sign, but it's for the collective. And so those of us with that Aquarian energy, I feel really are here as those cosmic weavers and seers and psychopomps for the collective. And that's going to look different for each person, right? And and that's also going to change over time. I mean, our reality is going to shift so much, especially with technology and AI over the next 10 to 20 years, that there's many different expressions of how this will look for you. So hope that's helpful. Pisces, we are pulling for rising and or sun. Oh, the journey. I feel like for all of these, I'm doing a big old sigh. The journey. How beautiful and glorious there. Okay, so let me tune into that for you. I mean, well, first of all, Pisces being so often connected with like the end of a cycle, connected with the feet from a medical astrology perspective, walking us into a new reality. We have, astrologically, as I had mentioned, we have Saturn and Neptune at the final degrees, the last decan of Pisces. There has been so much going on in Pisces this year and in that last decan. And then with those planets retrograde moving back in, it's revisiting the aspects of the self in terms of, I'm getting specifically for you who's tuning in, your psychic and intuitive abilities, your spiritual gifts coming online. That this part of this journey is you are meant to move into a deeper, fuller embodiment and expression of those gifts and of your intuition, so that you can assist the rest of the collective in doing so, in moving forward. You have a huge role to play in our collective evolutionary process over these next couple of years. I mean, 2025, 2026, and then 2027 is like another bookmarked year in my mind. And so there's something here around you're almost helping support to lay the groundwork in terms of our spiritual and intuitive connection and the depths of the emotional process that is required for us to shift into our soul-aligned timelines and reality, what we are really here to experience. For liberation, this like word liberation comes up for us. And I'm also being shown you have gone through the ringer of like the death and rebirth process. You're probably tired of it. And yet it's through your lived process and embodiment that you are here to be the guides for the rest of us in moving through that. And for the rest of the collective that may not have I'll say the proficiency to move through it in the same way and caliber that you can. So I see a lot of you as guides, healers, therapists, energy healers, communicators. I mentioned animal communicators in another one. That like Pisces, so many with Pisces energy, major Pisces energy are very connected with the animal realm and make great animal communicators. But there's something here about like we're all bridge walkers, but you really embody that bridge between this reality and the next, this year and the next year, and what the next chapters look like. And it's through your lived experience. So I'm excited to see how that unfolds for you, and really anchoring into your spiritual gifts and whatever you need to do to trust them, to practice them, and to fully embody them. And that ends our moon musing for today. I hope those were helpful. Again, if you want a deeper Akashic channeling on this new moon, then come over to our group on School. It's called Bloom, a sanctuary for intuitive healers, and you'll plug in with a beautiful community with other light workers, mystics, and spiritual healers. For those of you who want to go deeper, I still have some spots open for my clarity channeling sessions. These are 30-minute Akashic channelings where we go deep into your specific soul gifts, soul path to assist you in this next chapter of your life or your healing work. And these are really great for those of you who are interested in deeper mentorship work. I have 3 spots open for my Oracle Mastery Private Akashic Mentorship. This is where I guide you in cultivating that inner oracle within yourself and stepping into that next level version of your healing work, of who you came here to be. This is amazing if you are in transition or wanting to transition out of an old way of working or model, or perhaps you've just had this feeling that there is something that is waiting for you within your own intuition and channel. It would be my honor to guide you. You can learn more about both of those offers in the links below. I would love to hear how all of this lands for you, and I'm sending you so many blessings for this lunation and beyond as we navigate the many pathways, timelines, choices that maybe we are revisiting, reassessing, and really allowing ourselves to anchor into that stillness so that they can be revealed rather than forcing or pushing. Sending you so much love and blessings. Until next time, be well.